at Auburn, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do with my life. So high school students, there's hope. You don't have to have it all figured out. All I knew is that I loved working out. You see, I started Auburn as a 150 pounds soaking wet freshman. I graduated as a 200-pound, completely confident guy who started super shy, and fitness changed my whole life. And all I knew is when I was in the weight room and when I was helping people work out, I saw people get the same results from their fitness. And I thought, how in the world do I monetize this? This is back in mid-90s. There wasn't a lot of personal training going on. It's a relatively young industry. None of my professors could tell me how to make money with fitness. They told me corporate wellness, hospital wellness, physical therapy, none of which is what I wanted to do. So I never envisioned being on this stage telling my entrepreneurial journey. I was not the vintage entrepreneur starting businesses in high school, starting businesses in college. That was not my story. In fact, I never even had a vision to own my own business. But as I pursued fitness and tried to carve a path out for myself, I just ended up in the industry. So in college, when people would ask me, how do I get abs? Can you help me with my shoulders? And I was just doing it for free because I loved it. And then I figured out pretty quickly, people will pay me pretty good money to do this. And so my first gym, only picture I have of it, there I was, working as young, straight out of school, built a great book of business, had 45 clients, but real quickly I learned that I was working when no one else was, and I wasn't seeing my young wife very much as she was a nurse at the hospital. And I kind of went through this crisis of identity. All my friends were coming out of school and going to grad school and becoming bankers and attorneys. And I was the guy in the sweats at the gym. And I'm like, do I have a real job? I'm making pretty good money, but is this real? Can I make a career of this? And really started to look what else is out there? Is there something else I should be pursuing? But I just had a passion in my heart for fitness. And I thought, man, I don't know that I can make this work, but I'm going to pursue it. And what I loved about it, I love clients. Gina's such a great example, had never done anything in her life. And to get a picture of how proud she was to run the Golden Gate Bridge and seeing how that just transfers to her confidence and her quality of life, it's like, man, I've got to figure out a way to scale this business bigger than just me. And so I read a book. Anybody read Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Kind of dating myself here. But that was the first business book I ever read. And if you know anything about Robert Kiyosaki, the great things about his writing is he has one idea and he says it 67 times. So even me as a non-business guy, non-entrepreneur, got the message. And the message was, if you're going to create anything significant, you have to create scale. You can't continue to trade time for money. And so what I did from there was, all right, what's out there that can help me scale? Because I don't have any idea. I found a franchise opportunity called Fitness Together, one-on-one personal training. I flew out to Colorado, had no idea that there was franchising in the fitness space, and became the first franchisee of that organization at 23 years old. So partnered with a friend of mine. We loaded up our trucks from the gym where we've been training, bought a little bit of equipment. And in 2001, I opened and had absolutely no clue what I was doing in business. And I just thought, you know what? I'm a great trainer. I've got people who are following me. And what I found is, as I opened my business, I was still the product. I had no vision bigger than just being the coach on the floor. But now I had overhead. Now I had employees. I had to bring more customers through the door. And I realized really quickly, I cannot continue to actually be the product. So the next book that absolutely rocked me is The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. Again, kind of dating myself. I think 2001, 2002 came out. And the premise of this book is, because you are a good fill in the blank, for me, personal trainer, does not mean that you know how to run a good personal training business. In fact, his premise is, the better you are at the core product, it's actually going to make it harder for you to scale because you're always going to default to what you do well, which is the product. And that hit me hard. I'm like, man, I was exercise science at Auburn. It's like all I've ever studied. Like, so you're telling me I've got to start thinking like a CEO and learn things like marketing and sales and the whole HR piece that makes every entrepreneur want to pull their hair out. But what I discovered is I really enjoyed it. And I was still in the industry that I loved. I was given opportunity to team members. We were opening additional locations. This is our second location. Went on to open 6 locations in Birmingham, won Franchisee of the Year, a bunch of different awards, and was really excited about the product. It was the right offering for the right time in the industry. It was all one-on-one training in private rooms. So I purchased the rights to 3 states, Alabama, Florida, North Carolina, and helped develop those territories for the Fitness Together franchise. So these are some of my Alabama franchisees. We had 15. We're about to jump out of a plane together, a little team building exercise. Some of my Charlotte, North Carolina franchisees, and then some of like 23 of my Florida franchisees. So at one point, I had 55 locations in my 3 states. I was traveling more than I'd ever expected to travel. We had just had our 3rd kid. I was learning a whole new skill set. But there was like something missing. Like what's going on? Why is the passion not there? I was making more money than I ever expected to make. I mean, my vision coming out of school was like football coach or PE teacher. So I was literally paying more in taxes than I really expected to make, and it was a little disorienting to me. But I thought I had arrived. Has anybody ever felt like they had arrived? Like, that was me in this picture. My goal that year was a 2007 BMW 5 Series. I remember walking in, writing the check for it, hit the goal, and I was like, man, I have arrived. This is it. This is the pinnacle. So what do you do when you're in business and you feel like you've arrived and you feel bulletproof? That's right. You invest in a $1.3 million house at the beach because your plan is, I tell you what, we're just going to build this, maybe throw a party in it before we sell it. Well, anybody in business in 07, 08, remember what happened? You could not build this fast enough when I bought the lot. By the time I went to sell it, you couldn't give it away. And I went from thinking, literally, I remember thinking, man, I'm not going to have to worry about money again, to I don't know if I'm going to make it. Like, I may be facing bankruptcy right now. And that was one of the biggest learning lessons of my life is no matter how secure you think you are, you can lose it in a second. And you put stock and you put identity and you put your value and your ability to produce. When it gets taken away, you're on a very shaky foundation. So that coincided with starting to travel the world a little bit with some friends on some mission trips. This is me in Sudan. I happened to have some Twix candy bars in my backpack. Probably the first time these kids had tasted. It was a great moment. But I remember going into a hospital and seeing kids that were dying from preventable diseases like diarrhea. And I saw that consistently, India, Africa, Honduras, Venezuela. And I thought, man, I have got to do something about that. Because if for 1 second I allowed myself to see one of my kids in that bed, like, it absolutely wrecked me. So one of the benefits of going over there and seeing this was being able to adopt my son, Benjamin. And so he's from Ethiopia. We brought him home at 10 months old. It's a great part of our story as a family, just a blessing. And had his first tackle football game last night, made a couple tackles. So that was one of the big benefits. But then also I felt like I'm called to do something with what I've seen. And I've been given the skill to build teams and scale business. Like, what can I do with that? So I started a nonprofit in 2008 called Never Thirst. And we provide clean water to some of the hardest to reach places in the world, in Africa and Myanmar and Cambodia and Nepal, which I'm going to in February. And really felt like I am called to lead this organization. I mean, fitness is great, but like, how could I turn my back to what's going on around the world? And I want to share just a verse that is, and the reason I'm sharing the verse is because it's part of our core value as a company. And that verse is, may God be gracious to us and bless us. Make his face shine on us. Why? Like, we love the blessing part. God bless me. God bless me. Let my business grow. Like, God, I want the blessing. But the connection is, so your ways may be known on earth, your salvation to all nations. And so I thought, okay, well then clearly I am supposed to pursue Never Thirst full time. But then I had sold all my locations. I was getting ready to transfer out. And I said, hey, babe, I don't really have anywhere to work out. So can I equip my garage and just invite a few of my friends over? And she said, well, as long as I can still have a place to park, you can do that. It probably won't last. And a few friends turned into a few more, and then a few more. And I started thinking, man, all I've ever really done was one-on-one training. What would it look like to start over all over again and create a group model? And at one point, I think there was like 16 people working out in my garage. We were waking up to weights. We were going to bed to weights. And Mindy's like, all right, you either got to do this or figure something out because you're taking over the house. But here I was this poster child for Fitness Together. I'm like, how am I going to figure this out? And I felt like, why would I do anything but Never Thirst? Like, I've seen kids dying. Like, that can be prevented. But what I discovered was, following my passion and following my heart, I've been able to marry those two together and create more change and more impact for my nonprofit than I think I ever could leading it as the executive director. So, big part of my story. So, Iron Tribe, I felt like, hey, there's a great track record of businesses that have started out of a garage. So I'm really confident by that. So let's move forward. And from the beginning, our vision to create fitness communities that change lives. And 100% that happens when clients come into our four walls every day. Just like this morning at 5 a.m., there's a group of 20 in there. I got to hear some incredible testimonials. That's absolutely what we're focused on. But we don't limit it to that. We want to impact our community. We want to impact the world, much like you guys here change the world. We 100% agree with that. And just as I mentioned, one of the core values down here is to connect God's blessing with his purposes. And so we said, look, we've been blessed with being able to create great communities. How can we connect these communities, not only in Birmingham, but all around our 12 states, with what Never Thirst is doing around the world? So first thing we had to do was establish a prototype. I had no gym to franchise. And so from the beginning, I knew I wanted to franchise it. I didn't sell my 55 locations to just open a gym in Birmingham, Alabama. I thought, I want to create a group fitness experience that changes people's lives, creates community, gets people engaged. So the first one home in Alabama, we had to show that we could duplicate it. We did one in the suburbs on 280 and ultimately said, hey, we've got a scalable model. We own and operate still to this day 5 of our own locations in Birmingham. And by 2.5 years in, we'd already franchised the model. This is the first franchisee in Nashville, Tennessee. There's 5 there now in 2013. And what we saw is our clients really embracing what we had built and wanting to be a part of it. And so we just multiplied really across the Southeast, predominantly through customers in Birmingham who had a great brand experience and wanted to go impact other communities. A guy like Warren Beeson, one of the first franchisees, there he is in the garage to my left. And that's really how it worked. It's just our clients turning around and buying franchises. And we grew really, really quickly. And that was a blessing. We won a lot of awards. There was a lot of growth. A lot comes with that. You might have seen the Inc. 5000 on the title slide 3 years in a row. Probably my favorite award ever, Entrepreneur of the Year from Auburn. Big Auburn guy, obviously from the cheerleading pick. So love that. Wrote a couple books. But ultimately what I've been most proud about is the Workout for Water movement. So when I started Iron Tribe, I said, how do we connect what Iron Tribe is doing with what Never Thirst is doing? And we just simply started a Saturday morning workout once a year where we challenge people to come out, raise donations, work out. You see the jerry cans there. We're doing workouts with jerry cans. We're identifying with predominantly women around the world who spend 3 to 5 hours a day walking for dirty water. And it has really taken on a life of its own. My franchises run them once a year. I think Atlanta's is coming up shortly. And it all goes straight to the people who need it the most. And so over the last 11 years of Never Thirst, 700,000 people have now received access to clean water. We're in 6 countries. We're almost at 14,000 different projects now. And what I've loved about that is the way I'm able to connect people with what's happening on the ground. And when I said on the ground, over in these areas. And so I've been able to lead teams of franchisees, of clients, of staff. This is us in India. This is me with a team in Cambodia. And I said, you know what? You gave. Now let's go see the results of your giving. And it's one thing to show up on Saturday and give $50 and get a T-shirt. It's another thing to go halfway around the world and see a plaque that says Iron Tribe Fitness and meet someone who said, because of this well, my kids now get to go to school because I'm not walking 5 hours a day to get clean water. I mean, unbelievable. So I want to show you a short clip that just shows the connection between the organizations.
Knowing that we can make the connection between God's blessings in our lives and his mission, which is to make his name known. And we can do that through silly little things like workouts. It turns that from just something that's about me and building my body to something that has a worldwide impact. So that's pretty cool.
On behalf of Never Thirst, we want to say a huge thank you to Iron Tribe Fitness for their incredible support for the Waters Life program. From hand pumps in South Sudan, India, and here in Cambodia, Iron Tribe is living out their DNA to give back and be a blessing to others all around the world.
May God be.
May God be gracious to us.
May God be gracious to us.
And bless us.
And bless us.
And make his face
To shine.
To shine upon us. That your way.
That your way.
So that your ways may be known on earth.
Your saving power.
Among all nations.
among all nations.
Among all nations.
So I just love that clip. You get to see people around the world being impacted because of what we're doing in Birmingham. So this is my team. I love the team that I get to do this with. Obviously could not scale, could not build without a team who was sold out to this mission, but not just mine. The teams around the country. I had a great experience this morning at our Johns Creek location. And so to sum that phase of my life up, 2010 to 2015, this is what it felt like. I was on a rocket ship. We were taking over the world. We were winning awards. I was getting to speak. I was writing books, and challenges started to hit. One of the biggest things we learned is because we sold predominantly to Birmingham-based business owners and we weren't franchising Birmingham, is I ended up with about 90% off-site owners who didn't live in their markets and who a lot of times were very rarely visiting their gyms. And so I don't care how good your model is, if you don't have an owner that's engaged and is leading their team and is a presence to the clients, you're going to have difficulties. So these next two slides probably sum up 2015 to 2018. And that is, I don't know if you've seen this, but a day in the life of an entrepreneur. I absolutely love this graph because it says, I'm excited. Oh, this is hard. It's working. I messed up. You got to give up the good for the great. Delayed gratification. I think I'm going to go bankrupt. I'm good. I don't know why I get so down on myself. I was wrong. I suck. Wait a second. My life is great. Like, that's a day. And I know that's not just entrepreneurship. That's leadership in general. But that really resonated with me. But this one probably even more so. My plan, okay, yes, I got this vision. I'm going to combine this business with what Never Thirst is doing. We're going to crush it. We're going to be generous. Everything's going to be good. But then what really happened was all these challenges and what is going on. And we've got closures and we've got franchisees not doing the same numbers as our corporate stores. And like, what is going on? And guys, like, I had a really hard time separating my identity from being the guy who had all the answers, the guy who had all the vision, the guy that was able to figure it all out. And I landed in full-blown depression. I don't know if anybody's been there before in a room this size. I'd be willing to bet you either have been there or you are there. But I would have said, I don't even think it exists. I think it's probably, just weakness, people who can't pull themselves up from the bootstraps until I went through it. I was completely humbled. I'm not a medication guy. Had to get on medication, had to see a therapist. And what I learned was my identity is not just resting in who I am when I show up for work. In fact, one of the first questions the therapist asked me as I was explaining my situation, all these struggles, all these challenges at work, he said, Forrest, is there any room in your narrative to not be a creator, to not be a builder? Never thought about it, but no, I don't think so. And he's like, well, let's start there. Let's talk about the other areas of your life. And so started a podcast. I made a list of the 50 best leaders that I knew had it figured out, at least from the outside looking in, across body, being, balance, and business. One of the reasons I'm here in Atlanta is because I want to have Chris Carneal on my podcast, and that he was on that list. But as I've done these podcasts, everyone from David Platt to Greg Sankey, commissioner of the SEC, to Alex Hormozy, who went from 0 to 50 million in 2 years, like Tony Robbins said, success leaves clues. And if you want to accomplish something in life, find someone who's done it and then model after them. And so at this point, probably 30 podcasts in, I would have to be an idiot not to see some absolutely clear clues. And so briefly, as I wrap up here, I'm going to share my biggest takeaways of what I've seen in my own life to recover from depression and realize I'm more than what I show up as at work. And then talking to 30 leaders now and picking their brains about how they do it as well. So the first thing is, if you think you're going to crush it as a leader, you're going to crush it as an entrepreneur, and you're not taking care of your body, you are deceiving yourself. I haven't talked to a single leader yet who didn't have a consistent workout routine as part of their daily schedule. Doesn't mean you have to show up and do power cleans and front squats, right? But they are doing something every single day. They're breaking a sweat every single day. Has nothing to do with vanity. It's about mental clarity. It's about getting the noise out of your head. It's about having the energy to show up at work and accomplish the challenges and show up at the end of the day to your family. So, number one, make sure you're taking care of yourself physically. Secondly, balance, which I define as your significant other and your children. Everyone I've interviewed has had an intense relationship with their spouse and with their kids. And what I found is they're saving some of their most critical thinking for their family. And on the inverse, when I see entrepreneurs who are out of balance and burning out, all of their mental energy, their physical energy, 100% is on their business, planning for the future, quarterly priorities, vision. And when they get home, the family gets the leftovers. But what I've found in my own life and in these leaders' lives is you have to be just as intentional. And I'm talking everything from date nights to keep the romance alive to how do you create one-on-one time with each kid when you have 4. That stuff absolutely matters. It's what matters in the end. And then business, obviously, all of these guys have had amazing businesses. And I've just seen a couple things that transcends industry, transcends type of business. Number one is every one of them has had a dynamic team. And just being here this morning, obviously Chris is a master at building culture. Culture is your unique weapon in a world where it's hard to diversify. Everyone wants to say me too to your offering. Your team is the difference. And then having a laser focus on improving the quality of life of your customers, making sure at the end of the day, nothing else matters except getting results for your customers. Your customers will bring your next customer. Like that should be your myopic focus. And then finally, every one of these leaders that I've interviewed have had a connection to a higher power. They know that they exist. They have a purpose that is bigger than the for-profit business that they're running, and some of them the nonprofit business that they're running. And when you're in that state and you realize that, it's a lot easier to not connect your identity to what you're doing, and to realize there's a plan, I play a part in it, but I don't control it all. And so for me, that expression is continuing to focus on what we're doing for Workout for Water, the probably be close to $5 million raised by the end of this year. But I found each business very similar expression to that. And so what I've learned is the most successful, the most content, the leaders doing the most that I've been exposed to are four-dimensional leaders. They have it all across body, being, balance, and business. And one is not more important than the other, because it's super easy to crush it in business and lose your body in the process, to crush it in business and burn your marriage to the ground, to crush it in business and have absolutely no faith component at all in your life. And so I would ask you, what do you really have if that's the narrative of your life? And so my challenge to you today is, yes, we've done some cool things. We've done won some big awards. We've changed a lot of lives. But man, it's been a hard road. You talked about founder and startup, and I always like to say, well, that's the pioneer. The great thing about the pioneers, they're the one with the arrows in their back. I've got plenty of arrows, but I have learned that that's just one dimension of my life. And the more I'm equipped across all four domains, the more effective I'm going to be when I do show up at work. So my challenge this morning, look at all four domains of your life. Make sure you're not just saving your best energy, your best thinking, and your best planning just for business. Thank you.